anyway, everybody who's following us here on social media, I'd just like to introduce you all to a good friend of mine, Chris Warren. He's based out of Chicago and Indiana in the United States. He's just come home from voting for the Trumpster. So we're just trying to get some feedback live from the USA about all the events in the USA, including polling, what's going on in the lead up to the election, and what potentially could happen after the election. So welcome all the way from the other side of the Pacific, Chris. Yeah, by the way, I should introduce to everybody, I've gotten to know Chris through my basketball connections. He spent some time in Australia, so he knows his place very well. He's into basketball like me, does a bit of coaching, but also helps guys get contracts over here with our associations, and also helps arrange for some Aussies to get over and get involved in the basketball scene in America. So he's a very well-connected man. And I like Chris because he's a very much straight talker. There's, pardon the French here, no bullshit, which is a good thing. So I'm looking forward to this conversation, and we'll get some in-depth going about all things political in the US of A. So welcome, Chris, to Down Under again.
Yeah, I wish I was there right now. Starting to get cold here.
Yeah, as you see, Chris is wearing his beanie. What's the temperature again, Chris, over there?
4.
Yeah. I think that's not 4 degrees Australian, guys. That's 4 degrees American. That's very cold. Anyway.
So no, it's 4 degrees. It's 4 degrees Celsius.
Oh, that is an Australian temperature. Oh, good. Oh, well, then you're being a bit of a sook. That's all right. God sakes. So, all right. So, mate, you got to the polling booths. Give us a bit of a description of what it's like in America to go to the polls.
So yeah, like I was telling you earlier, I got up at about 6:30 a.m. Went over there. The polls opened at 6. I went over there just right after 6:30 because it's down the street from my house. The line was down the street already, so I came back, made some tea, and went back over there at probably 7:15, 7:30, and then waited. Line was a little shorter, waited for about 45 minutes to an hour, got in, and made my vote for Trump.
And from the picture you sent me through, it looks like you guys do it all via computer now. Is it all online?
Yeah. They gave me a scan sheet.
Yeah.
And then the scan sheet was inserted into a computer. Then I made all my picks. I didn't go straight Republican.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times I would, but there were some other people that I know personally that I wanted to vote for in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Because that's where I'm registered to vote.
Yeah.
And even though I'm from Chicago, I have my house here in Indianapolis for the last 20 years. So anyway, I went over and went through it and voted for Trump and some other Republicans, and then some other people that I wanted to vote for personally. So it took me longer, but it was actually a pretty easy process.
So over that, I think that's one thing, for example, that me and plenty of other Australians would find interesting about American politics. So over there, you're either a registered Republican, a registered Democrat, or a registered Independent. Is that correct?
Yeah.
When you go in to vote?
Right.
So before you go in to vote, you register as Republican, Democrat, or Independent?
Well, you're a registered voter, and they actually, let me take that back. They don't know which your party is that you're particularly, but they, here's what's funny about that, Bob. I've been getting phone calls from this one particular Republican running for Congress.
Yep.
And they've been calling me for the last 2 months. I don't get any calls from Democratic parties. I only get them from Republicans. So somehow or another, they know who you're voting for.
Yeah. You're in the system as a Republican, obviously.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So when you say you're voting for someone else, would that be an Independent or a Democrat, or so you're actually putting some thought into your voting process? You stop voting along party lines.
Yeah, that's true. So there was a Libertarian candidate that for governor of Indiana, particularly his views on how he's dealing or would deal with COVID and what's going on the last 6 months, because of COVID, he would do some things differently. So I just, for the first time, I was like, you know what? This guy sounds like he sounds like Trump. He's going to actually do some things
Yeah.
that aren't normal inside the box things that politicians do. So he's going to go outside the box and do some things that we actually need to be done during COVID.
Yeah.
Open businesses up, let people frickin' make decisions for themselves on how they want to operate their businesses. Do they want to keep their bars or restaurants open in other businesses? Because the economy in the United States is getting killed.
Yeah, well, I think us Victorians over here would be totally sympathetic with that point of view. So it couldn't be any worse than what we're going through in Melbourne at the moment, which I've gone through with you. It's actually interesting though, in the politics over there, you actually have a first past the post system, and you also have a limited field. Whereas in Australia, you can go in a polling booth on polling day, and you could have like 17 candidates for the one seat, and they all come from multiple different parties. You could have 9 different parties on there, and you can vote party lines, and then you'll get we have what they call preference voting. So if you've got 17 candidates, you've actually got to go through and number them 1 through to 17. So if you vote number 1, but that vote doesn't get up in the person who's going to win, that then goes on to your next preference, and then your third one goes on your next preference. So even if you get more votes than somebody else, you can actually lose on preferences. But you can't.
Okay.
Can you understand that system? Because we can't.
Yeah, it's a
Mate,
little convoluted, but
well, very convoluted, and that's in our lower house. So your what do they call the House of Representatives over there? So ours is just the lower house, and in our Senate, you actually get voted in by the amount of numbers in the state. But that's where some idiots really get through, because the preference system, just instead of getting through the strongest candidates with the most amount of votes through that preference system, because most people just tick their party box, and then the party's preferences go in, and that's where it can lead to you just getting up these weird candidates who've got 0.5% of the main vote, but then when the preferences come in, they come in over the top. I hate it. I think it's a crazy system that just gets some people into your parliament that you should never have governing. And I think like what you've got in the States, that's a big issue, not just in Australia or America, but right across Western democracy. It's actually like Britain's system. It's very similar to ours, except it's a first past the post system. You get the amount of votes, that's it, you win. Our system's like, every kid's got to go home with a medal after losing a game of basketball or winning a game. They can't be the best player or stuff. Everyone's got the politically correct system, I call it. So it is
killing society.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating to see the differences. What's actually also fascinating for me is the different setups in the way you vote in the different states. That's one thing I wasn't quite aware of. Like in some states, once polling closes, that's it. You can't have any more votes. But they're like in Pennsylvania, which is going to be an important state in this election, they will allow the acceptance of votes. I forget, it's up to a certain amount of time after the polling booths close. So if it's a tight election, you've got to wait until those votes are all brought in. So I found that fascinating, that from state to state, there's no uniform system going right through. So over here, you've got 50 odd, 50 states? Well, we've got 6, but the same voting over here is done the same way. We actually don't, you might find this funny, we still do the pencil and paper. We don't do the online computer stuff.
No. I think we did pencil and paper last time about, what's that, 8 years ago? So
yeah.
Yeah. So I think we just went over during the Hillary versus Trump. That's when we went over to computers solely. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they would have started going down there after all that chat affair with Bush and Gore, wouldn't they? They would have not wanted to go through that again.
They still did though, but that was that's interesting, because I think we may have that same situation happen here.
With going to the courts. So
there's going to be some confusion.
So you think it'll be pretty tight?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So your man Trump, he's no certainty then.
Yeah, I think that, in the Carolinas, I think he still has the embelligible women vote.
Yeah.
And Texas, I think he's going to get Texas. There's certain states like Illinois he's not going to get that are always Democratic. However, I think it's all going to come down to the end, and Pennsylvania is going to, everyone's predicting here, it's going to come down to Pennsylvania in the end, and whoever wins Pennsylvania has got it.
Okay. Well, that's
and
not good.
Pennsylvania has always been Republican.
Okay. Well, the pre-polling then, the votes that went in, that was on one of our shows off a media person, actually, who's pro-Trump, in Paul Murray, but he actually did pretty good in depth when he's comparing pre-polling to what they expect today. And in Pennsylvania, Trump is miles behind on the pre-polling. So he's going to need a dirty big red wave in Pennsylvania to get across the line. So,
oh, man. So he's actually ahead in Pennsylvania here.
Oh, really? On the pre-polling?
Yeah.
Well, then I've either misheard, or that's Australian media for you. So,
well, it's just whatever they want to put out there in social media or in the media, that's what they're going to do.
Mate, you should have seen, if you ever get a chance, get on the internet and look up on today's version in my past last night. So on the 3rd of November, Channel 9 News, Australia, and look up a guy, Chris Orman's report into Trump. Mate, you'll flip. It is, if you want to hear, I have never seen anything between, it's bad in the USA, and I actually think Chris Orman's usually a pretty fair reporter. Mate, does he have it in for Trump? Yeah. I was staggered by the report he had on the news today. I mean, Trump is basically Satan, and this is supposed to be fair and balanced reporting. It was, Trump's got to go, or the world's coming to an end pretty much. I was actually taken aback, and that's saying
why
something.
Though? Why? Why does he think this? Why do people think this? It's amazing.
I think Trump is really polarizing, and here's the thing. The reason I got into Trump, my story with Trump is he piqued my interest back before he ran, when he was talking about running. And I thought this would be fascinating if someone like Donald Trump, who's not a politician, actually runs for the presidency. At that stage, I, like just about everybody else, gave him zero chance because he didn't have a political background. But I still thought, I'd followed Trump. I'd followed his Apprentice show. I always found him a humorous guy. So I thought this would be good, but at least entertaining. And, and then when he got to the Republican debates, sure enough, he was very entertaining, and he was something different. And when he started doing his Twitter account and putting it all out. I've never been so fascinated by anybody who's run for public office in my life. So from that point on, and obviously that interest peaked even further once he won the election in 2016. And so I followed him fairly closely. But I think if you don't follow him closely and you only take these 30-second grabs off mainstream media, now on that mainstream media, they edit the crap out of him to make him look bad. So if you're not a person like me, for example, who follows over here USA politics pretty closely, and you just follow these clips, you would actually think Trump's a bit of a nut. So when you get these clips on the news, and for some reason there's an agenda against him, whether it's, the deep state thing, or whether the politicians over there are just pissed off that someone from outside politics has come and won the biggest prize on the planet for a politician. I don't know what it is, but I was talking to one of my mates the other day, and he's a really sane guy. And it shocked me when he told me he was anti-Trump. This is one guy you, for example, would get along with. And a lot of his beliefs actually align with Trump. But he can't stand him. He reckons he's a racist and he's a bigot and he's an anti-feminist. And I said, okay, give me an example of how he's a racist.
Why are people saying this?
Because it's on the news and everywhere, and they 30-second clips. But anyway, so the one they always go to, which you would have heard,
amazing.
Is Charlottesville. Now how many times has he come out and made a statement to clarify what he said? But they all keep bringing it up to try and prove he's a racist. But they ignore his thing on the bill there that released African-American guys from prison because they'd been put in prison, funnily enough, by Joe Biden and his crime bill, many of them. And some of them, for example, Kamala Harris, when she was Attorney General, if people actually read her record, she put a lot of black men behind bars for extended periods. So Trump is one of the first to come out and let people out. He's had that choice program for schools for minority groups who can actually, if their kid's actually doing really well, they can actually choose what school they go to instead of being forced to go to a public school where they won't do well. So there's a whole bunch of things you can put out there. that Trump is doing really well for minority communities, not just African American, but it just gets all drowned out in this, white noise from mainstream media. And I don't know if it's got something to do with the ownership. We're a bit like over here, like we've got Fox News here. So the Australian ones here, they call them the After Dark mob. They're pretty much pro-Trump. But outside that, there's not a lot of pro-Trump stuff going on over here. I can tell you that now. It's probably actually worse here than what you'd have in America. So, and he doesn't get, I also follow the UK politics a fair bit, and he doesn't get a real good run over there either. So I just don't think people give him, I understand. Oh, I've lost him. I understand why people get pissed off with him. He's not everyone's cup of tea, and there are certain parts of him why I could understand why he does put people's nose out of joint, but I just wish people could separate the man from the record. What's he done while he's been in office? Has it benefited the country? Is it benefiting the free world? If I tell you, I'll give you an example. What he never gets any credit for is the peace deals he's done in the Middle East. No, where do you get that? No one mentions that at all. They said he's going to be a warmonger and start these wars. So he's got 3 peace deals in the Middle East. He's got the peace deal between Serbia and Kosovo, and 3 Nobel Prize nominations. And Barack Obama had have done that, mate, everyone would be kissing his feet. It's I find it like you. I just find it. I find it both fascinating and a little bit unbelievable.
No, that's exactly right. I don't understand if he's such a warmonger, how come there hasn't been a war started?
Well, he probably went close with South Korea, but that was at valid reasons. They were pointing nuclear missiles towards your western seaboard. So, I think most national leaders would probably take offence at that. But he does go about it in a different way. And there was a good special tonight about who is Donald Trump on our television over here. We had a 3-part documentary where the first episode was pretty good. The second episode started thing, and then the third one was just a hit job on him. But tonight they had another one after that, and that was a bit more balanced where they had both pros and cons against Trump. And you could see why he does. He's a polarizing figure. I think you either love him or hate him. There's not many. I would consider myself sort of one of the few that's sort of in the middle. I really do like Trump, but I do see why people don't like him. But what I still don't understand is, all right, you've got Trump, and all right, he does have his faults, like every freaking human being on the planet. But if I'm going into an election, and I've got a choice between Trump and Biden. I mean, that's just a no contest in my head. I don't care who you put. If you put Biden,
all right, let me ask you a question. Hold on. So you got, just like the rest of the world, I was thinking about this today.
Yep.
When I was in line. Does the rest of the world think that all rich people are voting for Trump?
No, I don't think so. I'll tell you what I see over here, and this is where I know the big tech companies are copying it, and as they should, because they're editing his content. But I tell you what, without the big tech companies, all you would have is mainstream media. Now, I know, for example, Jack Dorsey on Twitter doesn't like Trump. But what I do see on Twitter is all those people that do support Trump that are on Twitter, I'm seeing with my own eyes his Trump rallies, the car rallies, the boat rallies. I'm seeing all these people, and to me, it looks like a bit of a tsunami of support coming in behind Trump in these last 3-4 days. You would never have seen that on mainstream media. So, and if you're like me and you actually follow it, so I get on YouTube and watch his rallies, I actually don't spend a lot of time looking at Trump. I spend a lot of time looking at the faces in the crowd. And you can just see that these people the working class people like you and me, they want to put food on the table. He's a very strange billionaire in the fact that he can connect so well with the working man. This is supposed to be, the Democrats' field, connecting with the working man. It's like over here in Australia. Our ALP, the Labor Party, is supposed to be the working party, but they've actually gravitated further away towards this socialist agenda than being for the working man. I think most working people actually really connect with Trump. I'll tell you why, because he speaks the way they do. For me, this is what I like about Trump. He's not presidential. Everyone goes, oh, well, the debates weren't presidential. He's not presidential. I couldn't give a rat's ass whether he's presidential, as long as he's actually got a good platform and he's looking after your country. So,
how do you think he won against Hillary?
Oh, exactly.
He got all the Democrats that have been tired of getting kicked around
Yep.
and bullshitted their entire lives, and they all switched to Republican because they finally had a guy that was going to do the things that they hoped and wished that every Democratic person would have done previously.
Yeah. So there is base, the deplorables. So a lot of those
He's
ones.
got a lot of poor people voting for him.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of poor people.
So
and a
would
lot
those-
of blue collar, hardworking people that would be on the Democratic side normally.
So would they still be with Trump for this election, do you think? Or do you think some of them
Yeah,
might have
absolutely.
gone back? Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone here knows that the Democratic Party is stopping all the stimulus money going into the society right now.
Yeah.
All those people are struggling.
Yeah.
They need that money, and they know for a fact that every time he tries to get something done, they're stopping him because it's election year.
Yeah. Well,
They don't want him to take credit for anything and give him an edge.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then it would be a
It's
landslide.
absolutely insane. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would be producing a bit of anger within the community over there a bit.
Yeah, besides the Black Lives Matters, Antifa,
We'll
and
get to
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah. I can't wait to get to that.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. We'll get to that. We got plenty of time here. So that's what I tell you. What gets me a little bit watching your politics over there is all the focus is on Trump, but I look at, for example, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and I couldn't think of two worse people to represent my political views or what I want out of community than those two. I mean, Pelosi's a nutcase, isn't she? Or how does she keep getting? This is a big question for me. How does a person like Pelosi keep getting reelected?
I don't know how half of these people keep getting reelected. Typically, they're in a nursing home by now,
Yeah,
hanging out with my grandma and grandpa. Why are we still electing these people? I don't even know if they remember what they did 3 hours ago.
yeah.
Come on, man. It's absolutely insane.
God, you just sounded like Joe Biden just then. Come on,
Well,
man.
they're so old, they're reverting back to how they acted when they were kids.
I do have to
arguing like little children.
I do have to. Well, I'll tell you one of the actually interesting things that got thrown up in this election is on the left side of politics, and you would have heard these terms, I've got no doubt over there. So, and I should say to any Australian viewers, over there, Liberals mean the left side. Over here, Liberals mean Conservative, just to confuse everyone a little bit more. But, you know, I'll call them the Democrats. So on the Democrat side of politics, as it is over here in Australia with the left side of politics, they're against anybody that is in a privileged position. So, and against anybody that's been in the system a little bit longer. So if you're an old white male who doesn't buy into any new age sort of thinking, you're basically a dinosaur and you shouldn't be in politics anymore. So, but then on the Democrat side, who were their last two candidates to be standing for the presidency was Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, two old white males. I mean, where's this progressive politics they're talking about? You know, so I find that very interesting that they were their last two candidates. I actually think they made a mistake.
It's absolutely insane. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely hilarious.
But mate, what's going to happen if
man.
what you're saying though is 50% of the American population or close to will support that?
Well, there's a lot of brainwashed Americans, that's for sure. And then they have no choice right now.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no choice. This is the only candidate you could give these people, Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You're practically handing Trump the election.
Well,
I mean, at the end of the day, I hope like hell Trump is going to be our president.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a bit. You can't trust polls. You can't trust anything. What I can trust is what I see, and following it on social media and looking at the rallies that Biden and Harris are having compared to what Trump's getting and the response he's getting. I'm predicting. Well, I'm hoping I'm right. I'm predicting a landslide. I just think that there will be a red wave if the election is run fairly. Now, the only problem I have is...
See the color of my hat I'm wearing?
Yes, I do, mate. Actually, I'm a bit surprised there's no MAGA hat. Where's the MAGA hat?
They were all out of them, sold out.
I was actually going to see if I could get one of those, but they're not over.
I'll bring one when I come over in February.
Done.
Hopefully I can get this Australia in February.
Well, it's not looking good. They're saying unless a vaccine comes out, our borders will stay closed. So,
Oh, no kidding.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we've gone from being prisoners in Melbourne to prisoners in Victoria, and in a month or so we'll be prisoners in Australia. So,
New South Wales too, will it be close?
Yep. Yeah, unless you're an Australian citizen, so they just do not want, mate, our politicians over here getting onto Australia. They're so petrified of this COVID thing. And if you look at our stats here compared to America, I've talked to a few people I know in America. They just think we're insane, that we've gone down this lockdown route with so small cases. They can't
Bob,
believe.
can I tell you this?
Yeah.
They were going through the numbers last night on the COVID cases prior to shutting down.
In
Australia.
Australia.
Where they were and where they are now.
Yeah.
They went total shutdown, half the cases prior to right when COVID came out.
Yeah.
Now we have double the cases and we're not in a total shutdown.
Yeah.
They are all over the place with COVID here.
Well, they're all over the place here as well. Oh, actually, that's probably a bit unfair. Over here, they're actually pretty consistent, if you're going to give them some credit, but I think they're consistent with the wrong strategy. So that would be a whole other debate. So tell me, the other day on the phone, you were saying, so we've gone through the sort of voting system and all that sort of stuff. You were saying you're a little bit nervous of what's going to happen post the election. So if, say, it is a close election or it goes to the Supreme Court or Trump just wins, expand on that for us a little bit. What makes you nervous?
I think more so if Trump wins, there's going to be a backlash. That's why all cities are boarding up everything right now.
Yeah.
And so like downtown Indianapolis looks like they're getting ready for a war or a hurricane. Chicago's been boarded up mostly all summer because they went through 3 rounds of hoodlums coming through and robbing everyone blind.
Yeah.
So any chance Black Lives Matters or Antifa could get a chance to steal and rob, they went through the downtown areas of most major cities and just pilfered everything they could get their hands on.
So the interesting
part, everyone's afraid that and then this is how stupid this is going to be.
Yeah.
We're not going to know until Wednesday, Thursday, probably, what's really happening. Yeah. However, they're planning on doing this. Everyone's saying they're planning on doing this in the hours tonight.
Yeah.
So I could see that there's going to be some major problems with this. Hopefully, though, they don't come into the suburbs and try to rob people there, because once that happens, then there'll be a war. There'll be a civil war here that will not last long.
I love the confidence. So one thing I've read on there, which I think you've just touched on there, is the Antifa mob. And they've been, again, you don't hear it on mainstream media, but they actually seem to have a plan for today once the polls close and there's potentially a result one way or the other of going in, and this is what they're proclaiming on their social media, and just basically physically trying to remove Trump from the White House. So
did you guys see that they've got 250 National Guardsmen on standby?
I haven't seen it.
I'm not wall around the White House.
Now? Yeah. Well, I was going to say I'd be surprised if the Secret Service aren't onto it and they don't have some sort of contingency plan there ready. I mean, look, if I was in the Secret Service, the one place I wouldn't have Trump tonight, for example, is in the White House. I'd have him somewhere else. But
that's for sure. However, though, why don't they just say he's in the White House, let them all come, and then shoot them all? What would be wrong with that?
Well, you know,
they'd be doing our society a favor.
I told you, everybody, he's a straight shooter. Pardon the pun. No, I get where you're coming from, but there'd be certainly some people horrified by that over here. I'm not too sure about how it'd go in the States, but I mean, you're quite serious when you're talking civil war. That's something you're quite serious about. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Let's go back 2 steps then and go to what obviously the subject you want to talk about is because over here, there's been 2 points of discussion on our mainstream media. Both of them I find a little bit bizarre. So some on our media have had the audacity to try and say that all these shops are being boarded up and all these central city, downtown, as you call it, are getting boarded up because they're worried about if Trump loses, Trump supporters going into these cities and rioting. Now,
No, man.
I'm thinking, what planet
No.
are you guys on? So the other thing that was going on during
People are outside their minds.
No, exactly.
They are absolutely outside their minds. Why would any Trump supporters want to do this? Oh, they're the ones that own the businesses.
Exactly.
Come on, man.
Don't get. I'm just telling you what. I'm the.
No, I know,
don't shoot
Bob.
the messenger.
I know.
The other thing we get over here, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because
and the blue collar guys are the ones that work for those businesses.
Yep. No, and they're the ones that would lose a job if that business goes under.
They don't want this, man.
No. So that's good. We're going to build onto that a little bit in a minute. So the other part that we get, which will set you off again, is over here. And don't forget, this is what we get drip fed, is that most of the protest over there through BLM, Black Lives Matter, was peaceful. It was just an extreme element that did the rioting. What's your view from on the ground? Most of the protests were peaceful. It was just.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was just a minority element that caused all the trouble.
Yeah.
Feel free to have it. So you were in Chicago. You were in Chicago at this stage, yeah?
Yeah. So in Chicago, it was peaceful when the black guy came up to the white 80-year-old woman who was probably Nancy Pelosi's sister, freaking in the wheelchair, and started beating her.
Yeah.
Why did he do that? That's for what reason? Why did all those black guys and women and pull up in U-Hauls and throw bowling balls through every storefront window and rob them?
Yeah.
Why did the black police officer in St. Louis, who was a retired policeman after 40 years, a black man ran it, 77 years old, trying to help another black business owner, and he gets murdered?
Yeah.
Come on, if Black Lives Matter, why did this black guy kill that black guy?
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. They have no forward thinking about what they're doing except for to hurt anyone that gets in their way and thieve everything, because they still think reparations are in order for them.
Yeah.
What kind of outside the mind thinking is this?
Yeah. And before we start, for anybody who will watch this, I mean, one thing you should understand too with Chris, a lot of the guy, he works with a lot of young black men and getting them across over here, some African-American guys, to play basketball, help them along in their lives, give them opportunities. So it's not like Chris looks here as this purely a black and white thing. He's been involved with a lot of young black men, and he's done a lot of good for them. So just I want to clear that up too before we go. So I mean, the one actually,
this is the stupidity thing. What we're
exactly.
about.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people get the misconception that it's like over in Australia, we've got a thing over here they call safe schools in our schools, and it's all about, to suppose, stopping bullying. But really what it is, it's about pushing this gender identity thing. And, you know, they're teaching kids at, primary school level that you don't need, you may not be a male, you may be a female, or vice versa. But they've coded it in this name of safe schools. So I think this is, as a basketball coach, if you're playing against another coach, you might not like them, but if they've actually got a superior strategy to you, you've got to respect that strategy and think, okay, how can we beat that? So one thing I do give the people on the left, they coat their real agendas in these terms that people can't really, or find it difficult to argue against. So for example, Black Lives Matter. Well, if you come out, for example, and say all lives matter, you get shouted down. So to me, all lives matter. Actually, I've got a bigger theory. My slogan, if I was going to put it down there, is good lives matter. So I don't care whether you're black, white, Asian, whatever. If you're leading a good life and you're not hurting anybody else and you're obeying the laws, building a business, making the place a better place, you're a good person. But if you're one of these dickheads that are breaking into stores, looting, assaulting people, killing people, you're an arsehole. And if you died tomorrow, I wouldn't care. So that's, to some people, extreme, but I think that's where it should be heading, rather than us trying to divide everyone. But the funny thing I get from watching a lot of this Black Lives stuff and Antifa stuff, it's actually not black guys doing the protesting. A lot of it's the white Antifa guys.
Yeah.
So, and they're just out there. I don't care. People can argue with you all the time. Antifa's just out there to cause trouble. And for Joe Biden to say Antifa is not a thing, well, when he said Antifa's not a thing, it's a thought. Something along those lines in the debate. I was drinking coffee. I nearly spewed it all out over the table. So, and yet Chris Wallace didn't even pick him up on it. It was unbelievable comment. Yeah. So, there was one story. I don't know whether this was in Chicago that I've lost him again.
Go ahead.
Where did it happen over there where that young kid, the guy just walked up to him and shot him in the face? The kid was about 5, I think.
Which one was that?
There was a story where a guy got out of his car, walked up to a kid in the front yard. He was just playing, a 5-year-old, and he just shot him dead in the face. Do you remember that?
That happens in Chicago all the time.
I mean, I also find bizarre, and you coming from Chicago, you know this, that Black Lives Matter when it's a black life lost at the hands of the police, for example. But when there's black on black crime, so there's a drug problem or gang, and they're going through shooting at each other, and they kill innocent kids, adults, and all that, there's no protest. So is it certain Black Lives Matter or all Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, isn't that strange? How are they going to define that? Because they never answer the question, and they never address the issue. So, like you said earlier, all good lives should matter, right?
Yeah.
All lives matter at the end of the day. We know this. And, George Floyd shouldn't have gotten killed. No. However, I don't know what the rest of the world is drinking in their coffee. However, autopsies are open to the public for review. Yeah. So why don't you go to the autopsy, find out what he actually had in his system, what he was doing, check the video, and also his criminal record. Well, this wasn't the guy that we wanted in society. Right. However, it wasn't up to the police officer to be the judge and have judgment day on him and take his life. That's for sure. Yeah. However, though, he should not have been on the street. Well, but Martin Luther King didn't die that day. George Floyd did. Yeah. And they treated this guy like he was better than Martin Luther King.
I've never seen anyone have so many funerals. He must have had 7 different funeral services.
Come on, man. Yeah, I know. Absolute joke. Unbelievable. Yeah. Oh, jeez.
I'll tell you what, this is where Black Lives Matter actually was a legitimate organization. And I think a lot of people forget this. Immediately after George Floyd was killed or died, because he actually, like you said, there was other things in his systems. And I'm with you. The police officer who did what he did was an arsehole, and whatever comes his way should come his way. I feel a bit sorry so what I've done is watch the body cam footage for all those other 3 police officers, and they didn't do a lot wrong, but they're going to go down with this because of this other guy. But if you remember directly after it, at one stage, you nearly had a unified voice that said, this stuff is unacceptable. You had Trump on it, you had Pence on it, you had voices from across the board that were saying, what this police officer did was not right. We're going to investigate it. We're going to look into it. But then all of a sudden, these riots just happened all across the country. And you just can't tell me that those riots weren't really organized. It would start in one city, go to another city, and everything I'm looking at, wherever there was a riot, funnily enough, whenever there was rioters, there was always a pile of bricks or a lot of pile of planks of woods for these guys to go throwing through windows. Now, surely there's not that much construction going off in downtown cities in America that everywhere you go, there's piles of bricks.
They had U-Hauls filled with people and bowling balls. Yeah. Come on, man.
Yeah. So,
that were rented 2 days prior.
Give us a bit of, you gave me this story. I'd like anyone who listens to it, because it's something over here in Australia. I still have trouble coming to terms with it, to be honest. You guys live with this all the time, so it's much simpler. And I do remember the first time I met you, you told me the story about what do you call it over there, a conceal and carry license for your pistol. Yep. So you had one of those, and you told me the reasons you had it was to make sure that no one could hijack your car. I mean, those stories over here, it's just unthinkable. But the other story you had while the rioting was going on, I mean, it's up to you. Do you want to go over that for us? Where there was you and your mates, and just in case anybody of these riders decided it was a good idea to come down into the suburbs?
Yeah, man, that was a fun night. We actually,
Fuck.
yeah, my buddies and I. Well, I'll go back a little bit. So that particular day of events,
Yeah.
the town outside Chicago by my parents' house. My parents are deceased, and I have the house. My youngest sister lives in there now. This is a house they built, so we're keeping it in the family. So the town where they built this, I know a lot of people, and in the town square, they all the businesses got all their friends together. They got all their guns, and they went in the city center and waited for Antifa, Black Lives Matters individuals to show up. So they just sat in their cars, and they basically were saying, hey, if you're going to try and get into our businesses, you're going to have another thing coming. So as soon as they pulled into the town square, saw them, they left immediately. They went to the next town.
Yep.
Guess what was waiting for them that town? Everyone with their guns, and the police as well.
Yeah.
And what did they do? Turned around and left. So we actually went to my parents' house. We sat in the driveway, and just to make sure, my buddies and I, nothing happened there. So we just had our shotguns, guns with us, and we just had a fire in the driveway in a fire pit. Had a few laughs, talking, hanging out, a couple beers, and we're just waiting just to make sure no one came into our neighborhood.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people in their driveways that night with their guns waiting.
Yeah. So if they had
this wasn't us. This was happening everywhere.
Everywhere.
No one wanted anyone coming into the suburbs.
Yeah. So if they had actually did come into the suburbs, there would have been a bit of trouble.
There would have been a lot of shooting.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
no question. Absolutely no question.
So if Biden wins this election, will these people on that side, these BLM and Antifa, will they continue with that behaviour, do you think? Will they feel emboldened about this? And so, because a lot of the stuff I've read, for example, from Antifa, they don't care, to me it seems, they don't care who wins this. They just want to tear down American society for some reason. Now, I'm not too sure why, but I'm just wondering if Biden wins, whether that'll embolden them, for example, to come into the suburbs.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because you have a lot of these Democratic cities, like, for example, Chicago, that they should have had the National Guard in there months ago. Months ago.
Yeah.
But because they don't want Trump to get any credit for anything, or they don't want to have any votes going towards Trump and away from the Democratic Party, they would rather see our city get tore down.
Which is
it's
amazing.
Absolutely insane.
Right.
All these Democratic cities should have had National Guard in there months ago. So I think that once this election is over and Trump wins, they're going to have to say, hey, we've done what we could to try and keep him out. Now we have to restore.
Give us the National Guard. Yeah.
Now they're going to have no choice, Trump or Biden. They have to go in and say, hey, we need the National Guard now.
Yeah. So would the same thing apply, when you're reading of it and you're looking at, for example, Florida and New York? They're two similar populated states. Now, forgetting the Antifa on the COVID thing, do you think there's an element of the way they've managed COVID also to keep that bubbling along to hurt Trump electorally?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Everybody. Go ahead.
No, you keep going, mate.
I think that they've tried everything to get him out of the White House.
Yeah.
So you see in the debates or any ads that Biden has or any of his small rallies, COVID.
Yeah.
He's just hammering COVID home. And what if COVID wasn't the issue right now? What would Biden be saying? Is he going to blame Black Lives Matters on him? Where in the world do all these people think that Trump is a racist? How is this possible? I have no idea. You alluded to it earlier.
Yeah.
He's helped free plenty of black men.
Yeah.
That have been wrongfully imprisoned.
Yeah.
However, though, he didn't create all of this. He inherited it.
Yeah.
I didn't see Trump down at my uncle's chief of police in East Chicago. I didn't
Yep.
see him over there training the police officers. I
Yeah.
don't know, Bob. Maybe you and some other people from some other countries where you guys can come over and we'll follow Trump around and see if he's helping the police train these guys.
Well, what I find
No,
interesting, what I find interesting about that point you bring up is, you know, sort of they talk about one of the big platforms on Black Lives Matter is this systemic racism, right? So if you've got systemic racism, you just don't get that overnight. That is something that builds over generations and decades. It takes a long time. You're talking about your whole justice system, your police system, your bureaucratic system is all designed and built on the platform of racism. So it gives, for example, you know, what we've talked about before, white privilege to any white guy. So to build that is not an overnight thing. So everyone's having a crack at Trump about it. My question that I can never get an answer to for someone that's, for example, pro-Biden or used to be pro-Barack Obama is you actually had a black president for 8 years. What do you do to break down systemic racism then? If you're going to have a crack at Trump, surely you've got to have a bigger crack at Obama, who had 8 years to fix this. What did he do? What did Biden do in that 8 years in the vice presidency? So
that's exactly the point.
Yeah, but that doesn't. Yeah, but it doesn't get raised in the media. It's all, and I'd love to know. I would love to actually sit in the editorial rooms where they produce this media content, and you know, we've all got our suspicions on what it is. What is it that you guys are talking about? Because I tell you, here's my prediction. I reckon the media silently do not want Trump to lose. If Trump loses, their ratings are going to tank. What are they going to write about for the next, 2 years? All they've covered in the last 4 years is everything to do with Trump. Now, if Trump goes, well, okay, you got Biden, or you're going to have Kamala Harris. Well, good luck with that. You'd be covering a lot worse things than what you would have with Trump. But I just wonder whether in those editorial rooms, what the motivation is to give him such a bad run, and do they actually want him? Do they actually want him to win this election, or do they want him to lose? I just don't get them what their agenda is behind the scenes, or is their agenda to support Antifa? And there's some people within that media that want to tear down parts of not just American society, but I think Western society, because you've got a little bit of that over here too, and I think you've definitely got a lot of that in the UK and everywhere else. So you can go down certainly with some rabbit warrens with this. Where you want to go to, I don't particularly.
Only God knows.
Yeah. But mate, you'd have more ideas. Give us an idea. Again, this is not so much a Trump or Biden thing, but I just think it's a unique part of American society that many people over here just do not contemplate. And there's no comparison. I know over in America they used our thing after the massacre in Tasmania, how they took all the guns off everyone. But even before that, there wasn't a lot of guns in Australian society. Not many people own guns. In my whole lifetime, we just don't get it. But over there, that's
a new group of people that have machetes, don't you?
Yes, they're definitely within our population. Hopefully, we can address that. Now, I mean, mate,
maybe you need to build a wall for them. Or build them a boat and send them back.
Well, that happens. That happens. To give our
Put them
guys
on Noah's Ark.
To give our politicians some credit on there, they've actually. Under the Conservative guys, actually have been sending some boat backs, but they've let in some nastier elements. But then again, that's a debate for another day. So just your what do they call it over there? What's your 2A, not an amendment, what 2A rights? What's it in your constitution that Trump's protecting?
I'm sorry?
What is it in your constitution that gives you the gun rights? What do they call it?
You have the right to
bear
arms.
Is that the 2A amendment or something to the Constitution? I don't know. But it's something that Trump is obviously protecting. But give us a Second Amendment rights. That's it. So I was on the right thing. So
I know where you're going.
Yeah, give us an example. It doesn't necessarily have to be you, but typically for a red-blooded American male like you, and actually some of the females I've seen over there are awesome with this. What in gun ownership would you have, or would other people have? Just to give people over here a bit of an idea.
What kind of guns do I have?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like the guns I own?
Yeah. What arsenal do you have?
Just a couple of pistols and shotguns.
Yep. Do you have any assault rifles, or is that
No.
common? So, but
No,
people,
man, no.
no, but people can own them, can't they, over there? Or is
Yeah,
it?
they can.
It's
Yeah, you
different
can
from
get
state
whatever
to
you
state.
want.
Yeah,
You can get whatever you want.
and you can virtually. Is it Walmart you walk into and you can just purchase ammunition and weapons? Do you need a
Yeah,
license?
yeah.
Do you need a license?
You have to have your permit with you, but yeah,
Yeah.
you can. Most of those stores aren't checking that.
Yeah, they're not
And,
checking.
and it really, um, the most of the stores that sell guns, they'll take you through the process when you go, and
Yeah.
you have to apply for everything right there and
Yeah.
then and there. So,
So,
but you can buy anything you want really. And then they have, well, prior to COVID, they have a lot of flea market gun
Yeah.
shows where guys are swapping guns, selling guns out of trunks of cars. But like, for example, though, a good old 12 gauge
yeah,
will probably, I've got these French doors in front of me right now, so they're about, I don't know, 6 feet apart. I can get a spray out of a 12 gauge that'll probably take out 2-3 men.
yeah,
And once it travels a little bit here, but it'll put a hole through someone.
yeah.
So, however, I have no assault rifles, but yeah, but they're available. They're available.
So,
However, though, some people may need these because if this Civil War thing happens, you know they're going to be coming with them at
yeah,
people.
yeah.
There won't be enough of them to last the Civil War. It won't happen.
Okay, we'll come to that in a little minute. So, just this is one thing I want to get out of you because you're actually in a really unique position that you spent some time. You obviously grown up in America and with all that sort of background, but you've also spent some time in Australia. So, taking aside the gun ownership that you have over there, and this is where I think Australians misunderstand it a little bit. You know, I certainly do. I've never lived in America. I've had a brother who's lived in America, and I know a lot of people have lived there. But life actually as normal over there with gun ownership as what it is over here in Australia? You've lived in Australia for a bit. Is there much difference between the way the two countries live, the people within the two countries, or because a lot of Australians?
The only thing, I love Australia, for example. I've talked about wanting to live there permanently many, many times. And I've been coming to Australia for a decade now, and I've seen changes in Australia with the amount of immigrants that are coming into society there that have changed, I think, how people are protected. Because when I first started coming to Australia, I was just baffled on how safe it was. And it's still safe. However, though, increasingly, you've had these immigrants that have been coming into society that have changed your culture, and I hope it doesn't continue to happen because it'll ruin Australia. Because Australia is one of the safest places to live.
Yeah.
You feel so safe there. However, I'm hoping that what's going on there doesn't make your gun laws change where everyone's going to have a gun to protect themselves.
Yeah, I don't think in
America,
Australia
you have to have a gun to protect
yourself. Yeah.
You have to.
I don't think.
Let me tell you this. Going back real quick.
Yeah,
Let's say, for example, when I collect a couple of nice old cars, so if I take a car into an area of Chicago that I know is bad, and I do this on a regular basis, I'll stay 2 car lengths behind every other car. I'll have my gun ready, but knowing that I have to stay 2 lengths behind every car, I have to be on a swivel watching my surroundings, because if we happen to stop and they try to pin me in, I have to have those 2 car lengths to move somewhere.
Yeah.
So a lot of people make a mistake and they pull right up somebody's bumper. Once you do that, they've got you pinned in and you have no recourse other than
getting carjacked. Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that go into your thought process when you're going through these cities, and that's what I've grown up with.
Well, I'll give you an example over here.
In Australia, you don't have to think about these things.
Well, actually, not quite right. I'll give you an example. And what you're talking about here is a bit of street smarts, a little. When I first came down to Melbourne, so this is going back 30 odd years. I mean, I could go to sleep in my house, and I'd leave I still do it actually to these days. where I leave my door open, unlocked, basically. That to do that now, you're taking a risk. Back then, you weren't taking any risk. I've seen changes in Melbourne. Look, I'm confident we'll never go down the way America's gone with their gun laws. I'm also pretty I'm also pretty confident that, hopefully confident or hopeful that usually when we do get a band of immigration come in, they do convert to the Aussie culture over a couple of generations. So the groups I'll come out and say it, it's the Sudanese groups you're talking about. I've dealt with some really good Sudanese kids, as well as I've seen some troubled ones as well. There was one day I was surrounded by a group of them because I was trying to get this girl's handbag back that they'd stolen from the stadium. But that was a bit of a frightening one because I knew a couple of them were carrying knives. So at that point, I decided, well, what if I'm caught by myself? So the one thing I do, and, like you say, you've got to be able to protect yourself. And I'm getting the age, where I was, 30 or 40, I'd have no issues protecting myself, but I'm pushing 60 now. So, you're not quite as capable anymore. So I just certainly make sure that my, what do you call it? This is when you change a tire and you're taking off all the nuts. So I've got that nice and close. So if I need some sort of weapon to help stop someone coming at me with a machete or a knife, I've got something.
A lug wrench?
That's it. So that's nice and close. So, you can try and have a crack at me, but I'm going to try and make sure at least I've got something to defend myself and hit back.
Yeah.
You can't carry
baseball bat.
Yeah, well, mate, I've got baseball bats sitting next to my bed. So things have changed. So, and I think in Australia now, you're getting a lot of carjacking, or before at least COVID, you were getting a lot of carjacking, gangs walking the streets, people in fear. And there's, for the first time, you would walk down the street and you would look twice at somebody just to make sure your back was okay. They'll walk past you and they'll probably give you the similar look. So that part in Australia, in Melbourne, has certainly changed, I would say, in the last 10 years. But you try not to do it, and you're hopeful that that'll change. But you're right, our makeup in our population has changed. I had to take a train over to the western suburbs one stage, and I never go to the western suburbs of Melbourne. It's like the inner city New York or whatever. You just never go there. So I'm living on the eastern side, and I was actually even taken aback how much the demographic had changed on the western suburbs from what it used to be. They used to be all the Greeks, Italians, especially the Greeks, the Lebanese, all that. But now it's a lot of the African countries, the Sudanese, all those going across there. You've now got a high proportion of Muslims, and a lot of the Muslims
Where did all the Greeks and Italians go?
They're now in Oakley, mate, the Oakley Wogs. So they've sort of become, that's why I'm hopeful in the Australian culture. So the Vietnamese, Chinese, all those groups that have immigrated to Australia become a part of it. I think the Sudanese will as well. I think the ones that probably have a real trouble in adapting to Aussie culture is more the Islamic faith, because their culture is so different to what our culture is. So how long that'll take, I don't know. But having said that, some of the Islamic guys I've got to know, some of the best guys you'll ever meet. So there's also the obviously lunatic fringe on there as well. So, mate, you've always got to, I think I'd rather always look at the half glass full than half empty. So I do think we'll retain it in Australia. I'm hoping we will. But I do think in Australia, they've got to have a really good look about our immigration makeup. And funnily enough, again, this is where Trump gets bagged for saying, I want to put up a wall. I want to secure my border. I don't want immigrants coming in illegally. So I'm going, well, that's, Captain Obvious. Why is that such a controversial thing? And yet if people, for example, here in Australia bagging for that, but, the one advantage Australia's got is we're an island continent. We have a naturally made wall. It's called an ocean. It goes right around the whole country. Yeah. It's not impossible to get here, but, you are risking your life to come here. So how we can never bag another country for wanting to secure its borders when we're an island continent is beyond me. So I don't get people who think we should have open borders and anybody should be able to just walk in. I thought they learnt that lesson after 9/11.
Yeah, well, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't this is what's hilarious also. And it's quite humorous that they want these immigrants to come in illegally.
Yeah.
So one day they can vote.
Yeah.
And they don't care about the drug dealers and the drain on our society that they're going to have by entering our schools, our health system, and having everyone else foot the bill, pay the taxes, raise taxes to pay for them.
Yeah.
To live here.
So
it's absolutely insane. Who wants to have this?
Yeah.
No one does. Hey, I'm going to raise your taxes 1,000% so these 100 people can move here and live, make more money than you, and you're busting your balls all day because you're going to pay for them to live here for free.
It's funny. I hear what you're saying, but and we have a bit of a similar thing over here with our Greens, so the AOCs.
But drugs and the opioid epidemic.
No, we don't have that bad.
Forgotten about with COVID.
Yeah,
they're killing kids left and right.
Yeah, that's a growing issue here. I don't think we have it as big as what you guys have got it, but it's certainly an issue. The only thing I'm seeing though a little bit is, for example, a lot of those immigrants, there are those bad elements mixed in with them, but there are also good elements of people trying to come across and make a new life for themselves. For example, the Latino vote was supposed to be all anti-Trump. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm seeing is a lot of the Latinos over there are actually pretty pro-Trump because they've come from countries where they've experienced socialism and communism and totalitarianism, and they've all of a sudden got freedom. They can go out and they can get a job, they can make a life, they can make money, they can do things they could never do in their previous country. And what you find is over a period, these guys actually naturally start supporting anybody who will stand up for freedom. And a lot of the ones that I've listened to on social media, they're more opposed than any other American about having open borders because they don't want these idiots or the really bad guys coming across those borders. They're the ones they've run away from. So I sometimes, and we get that a bit over here.
Those are the hard-working guys.
Yeah. So we get a bit of that over here where one of the Sudanese boys that I did coach with Nathan at Keezy, I got to talk to his dad because I had him in youth league. Beautiful kid, and had a bit of talent. But his dad was just a hard-working guy. He had, I think, about 4 kids, and he was trying to get him through school. He was a decent guy, and this young fella he was lucky because he came from a family that had both a father and a mother. I think, these single mother families without the male presence in them is a big problem. But these guys are naturally guys who are going to embrace a Trump platform more than a Biden platform. What I'm hearing by listening to them, a lot of them look at Biden's platforms and Harris's platforms and they say, shit, that's what I run away from. So I'm just wondering whether over the journey it could also backfire. I'm not too sure. I think that's a social experiment, but I still think, a wall to me is a smart idea. It fights the drug problem. But it's like John Howard said over here, we will choose who comes here and the circumstances in which they will come. I think every country's got that right to be able to do that. And that doesn't make you, for example, a racist. No, Trump, the problem for Trump, and here's where Trump, I was listening to on this documentary, one of his early commentaries. Trump calls it as it is. He's got no filter. So if you remember when the Mexicans, before he got elected first time, he said Mexican are rapists. He didn't say all Mexicans. He said, there's some good ones come. But he just went where no politician went. He just called it as he sees it. See, people have a problem with that. I actually love it. I just say, forget the filter, forget acting presidential. I want you to tell me, no bullshit, what you're thinking, and then I know who I'm voting for. You couldn't believe Biden or Kamala Harris just on, for example, the fracking stance they take. It's lie after lie after lie. Trump, whether you like him or not, you know where he stands. What policy platform has Trump lied about? And if you ask that to someone on the left, they can't argue with you. Tell me one platform he's put up and he's backflipped on. I can't think of one.
Yeah. No, that's why they're always changing things up. There's one thing after another they have to try and go after. Look at all the things that they've tried to do to get him out of the White House.
Oh,
it's absolutely
amazing. It's mind-boggling. Yeah, but again, unfortunately, a lot of that, for example, the what they found out about that meeting with Obama and Biden and all those where they were scheming to undermine Trump's presidency doesn't get much airtime over here. Unless you watch certain programs, you're not going to know about it. So, I'm one of the few that I follow it fairly closely, and I follow a lot of the good American media. So I see it. And when I have these conversations, which are few and far between, because basically end up going, I'm like you, I just lose it after a bit because people are just so uneducated about it. But here's what I do want to know, mate, and there's two real questions for you a little bit. So you're talking, if this election's close, or even if, let's say, Trump wins in a landslide, my guess is a lot of these Antifa mob and the BLM mob aren't going to like it. They're going to riot. And I don't need to be guessing on that. People, you know, these businesses aren't boarding up their businesses because they think there's going to be fireworks and lots of celebration. That's a clear indication that they're worried that there's going to be major riots in their streets. So you're actually legitimately saying that if things go too far here, I'd be interested to find out what you think is too far, that you could face a legitimate civil war over in America.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to take off, and I'm going to take off here in a few hours, and I'm going up to my parents' house, and then a couple of my uncles are going to come over.
Now,
and,
is that in the country or is that in the suburbs?
So it's in right outside Chicago.
Okay, it's in the suburbs of Chicago. Yep.
So I'm going to close up my house here in Indianapolis, and I'm going to head up there.
Yeah.
So just in case, and then because they're saying that let's, for example, if you're right and Trump it seems he's going to be winning a majority of the states and Pennsylvania is not going to matter, then that's definitely going to happen. I think it's going to happen tonight regardless. I don't think it matters one way or another.
Yeah.
All these people that think Trump supporters are going to be doing any of this are insane.
Yeah.
These are the guys and women that work at these stores and businesses. They're not going to wreck their own businesses. These are the ones that own these businesses. Small businesses, large businesses. They're not doing this. So anyone that thinks this is insane. What they will be doing, though, is if Trump loses and they still are looting, they're going to start killing.
Yeah.
Then they're going to start protecting and saying, you know what? Screw it. We're protecting what's ours. They're not going to be the ones looting. They'll be protecting even to another level. To another level, they'll be like, hey, this is it. It's war now.
So,
because you're going to have those extreme Trump supporters that are at that level where they hate everything about the left. Absolutely hate it. And those people live out in the country and off the grid, and they don't live by the same rules everyone else does.
Yeah.
And they live simply. And they won't take or tolerate you coming and stealing what's theirs.
Okay. So
they will not do this.
Expand on those people a little bit more. So, you know, they get put across as the hillbilly element or the white supremacist. You hear about this all the time. Are you talking about those types, or is this something different?
No, it's a lot of people out, the farmers, country folk that are out there working hard, building something that they don't want ruined.
Yeah.
It doesn't make them racist. They don't want anyone coming to steal what's theirs.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone stealing what's mine. That doesn't make me a racist.
Yeah.
You're not going to steal my shit. I don't understand what's so hard about that. Why does that make people racist? I have a gun to protect what's mine.
Well, what about those two people you pointed out in Michigan? There were the two lawyers who came out with the machine gun and pistol. So they're in court now.
Louis.
Yeah,
in St. Louis.
Yeah. So, but they're now being dragged into the courts. So they're fighting, obviously, that.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why are they being dragged through the court system?
Political.
Come on, man. They kept, you know what happened? It worked. It kept them off their property.
Yeah. Well, over here, you don't have that opportunity. You just basically let them bloody break in if they were coming across. But I was watching that day, and I mean, if you've got, what must have been 300 BLM Antifa mob going past your property, and before that, you'd seen how they'd been going on the properties and vandalizing places and looting places. Why, if you had the ability to do it and it's within the law over there, why wouldn't you protect your property? You know, so I'm getting what you're saying.
You have the right to protect and serve here. You have the right to bear arms. You know what? I have the right to defend myself and my property. I'm going to do it.
When this is an interesting
And
question.
the left and the Democrats want to put you in jail for this.
Okay. When do you over there, by your laws, all right, you've got weapons that can kill. So when do you actually have the right, and again, something we wouldn't even be able to contemplate over here, when do you have the right to kill to protect your life and property? Is that?
Yeah, so it's when they enter your premises or have a gun and they have a weapon in their hand. So for example, if it was a Sudanese and he had a knife, I have the immediate right to protect myself and kill him.
So those two guys in St. Louis.
I shouldn't say kill him. You really, this is the bad thing about some people.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know how to use a gun.
Yeah.
So you can wound someone and disable them that way.
Yeah.
That's a whole other discussion, because
So, yeah.
that's where I don't get how some police shoot someone 10 times. That is insane.
Yeah.
However, though, a person that knows how to use a gun, I can disable you and you'll drop that knife, I'm sure, without killing you.
Yeah.
However, if you're not going to stop and you're coming at me and I feel my life is in danger, you do have the right to shoot to kill.
Yeah. And listen, sometimes when you shoot, you might get off balance and the shot might actually accidentally kill someone. You might not necessarily mean you have intent.
You're exactly right, and you're still protecting yourself.
Yeah. So the law.
If you're married and they're going to go after your wife and kids, what do you do?
Oh, well, 100%. No, you do what you can do under the law. So
no one wants this. No one's going to let their wife and kids get raped or killed.
Yeah. Yeah. So
no one's doing that.
So then if these guys, and where I'm probably going into, if these guys actually do start to come in the suburbs and they're armed, whether it's with knives, machetes, guns, whatever, and they start going into properties in the suburbs, then the law would protect people to defend themselves in those suburbs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there's only so far you can push a certain part of your population. Would I be right in saying that there's and this is where you're going to know it more than me, would I be right in saying that there's probably a silent majority through all these riots and all this Antifa stuff that's been going on for so long, that's basically been sitting back and waiting and hoping these things finish, but if push does come to shove, they're just going to say, screw this, we've had enough.
Yeah.
Is that legitimate?
I think is part of it too. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I was watching one of the black movement leaders, and he was in a church up there. It was actually quite interesting, and he's going, and this is where, I see, I think I told you on the phone the other day, I try and follow a lot of the black conservatives or blacks with a different voice to BLM. I find them fascinating to listen to. And this guy, he just got into his church one day and he's talking to his members, and they're all supporting him. And he's going, he used the N-words, and my fellow ends, are they crazy? He says, he said basically exactly what you're saying. He goes, they're protesting the white guys and through all Black Lives Matter, and said, yeah, we get that. But if you keep rioting and looting and stealing and all that, and you're coming out with guns, there's millions of white guys in the South all armed to the teeth. You're not going to win.
No, man.
He said, do not push the white man. That's what he said. Do not push the white man where you'll snap, because you'll wipe us out. We'll be gone. He's pretty much saying a lot of what you're saying, except his fellows. And it was actually quite encouraging to watch it, because everybody in there was a black person.
It's a war they cannot win.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, though, whether as many in the black community support Black Lives Matter as being put out across the media. Again, I just see too much of this as being a lot of left radicals who are not black at all, they're mixed in.
There's a lot of that.
Element. Yeah.
You have a lot of black people, though, that don't want anything to do with any of that.
Yeah.
They are distancing themselves as farther away, the furthest away from that as possible.
Yeah.
They doesn't matter who they're siding with. They're not siding with or agreeing to that they're going to support any Antifa, anything on the left, or Black Lives Matter that has anything to do with looting. There are plenty of black people that aren't involved in any of that and want to have peace among our society.
Yeah. And just get on with building lives for them and their families, I would assume. So explain, if you can. I don't know whether you can explain this, because I for example, I have not. I've been really disappointed, and this will probably get me in trouble over here. But I get really disappointed when I'm looking at a lot of the celebrities, and in particular the sports celebrities, who are coming out, as you would know, in the NBA, taking your knee, Black Lives Matter on the thing, and just buying into this whole narrative. And I know their ratings have tanked over there. What is there an explanation for that? I mean, is there just silent people within that sporting community that don't want to speak out? Their careers that much on the line if they do speak out? I just can't believe it's so unanimous across the board. I didn't watch an NBA game this year because of it. I can't, to be honest, between you and I think LeBron's a smart guy, but I think he does stupid things. I just can't watch him anymore. Because I don't care who you are, whether you're black or white, you're causing division. And here's another funny thing, mate. They attacked Trump for causing division in society. I've never seen anything drive division, a dirty big wrench between the communities and what Black Lives Matter did. It's basically pitting the black community against the white community. I mean, Trump didn't do that. BLM did. So what's behind all the
that's for sure.
What's behind all the celebrities getting behind the BLM and all these companies donating money to it and all this sort of stuff? Surely that's something they should stay away from with the 20-foot pole.
No, I don't know. It's for example, though, the NBA is clown ball. They're just a bunch of clowns.
Yeah.
You and a lot of Americans, Bob, have a major disconnect with the NBA anyway, way before Black Lives Matter. It's not a good product anyway.
Yeah.
And then now with everything that's gone on prior to just the NBA's guys coming out, and you had Colin Kaepernick with the NFL, and everyone kneeling during the national anthem. Come on. There's a reason why Colin Kaepernick is not in the NFL, and that's exactly why. It's not going to happen. He's never going to be in the NFL. They can do whatever they want, and they can say whatever they want about what happened, and it's a fact. He's not getting back in the NFL. And the NBA probably is going to lose millions of dollars because of the voices of what they are saying on what happened with Black Lives Matter.
Well, I think the part where
it is what it is, but it's a bad product anyway, so who cares? You don't see people not going to NFL games, do you, Bob?
Well, I don't follow the NFL as much as I would have followed the NBA. NFL. So what's going on in the NFL?
NFL is a pretty good product.
Yeah, but is the NFL, are they taking a knee and doing all this stuff? I know the baseball was doing it.
You know, surprisingly, these guys didn't.
Okay.
They didn't. You know, it's quite amazing that a lot of the NFL teams did not. They joined arm in arm, and they actually, there's a lot of smart guys in the NFL.
Okay.
In the United States, a lot of people think there's a lot of dumb guys in the NBA. They actually think it's the dumbest sport in America.
Well, that's
it
actually,
probably is, to be honest.
Yeah, well, that's disappointing because you know, we both love the sport, but
it's probably, I don't know if it's so much as dumb, but immature.
Well, I tell you where it is dumb and where they did shoot themselves in the foot, but this has got all more to do with money than anything else. If you remember, before all COVID, they had those Hong Kong protests, and the guy, was it from Houston, the CEO or the manager, came out and supported the Hong Kong supporters, and then the whole NBA shit themselves because they were worried about all the Chinese dollars losing it, because all the Chinese started complaining about they were supporting the Hong Kong supporters. And then you had, you know, all the ones that talked about Black Lives Matter and Colin Kaepernick and all this, all of a sudden, we shouldn't be talking about the Hong Kong protesters, you know. So it's all right for one particular race or culture to be complaining about, but when there's another race or culture in a different country fighting for their freedoms, no, we don't want to go near it because that could affect our dollars, you know. So I found the hypocrisy of that, and that's another reason they sort of lost me, you know. And I'm not quite like you. I did like a little bit of watching the NBA, some of the stuff. I've also followed a lot of the European basketball, but I'm a basketball nut, so I like watching it. But I don't care what sport it is. When you start politicizing it like this and bringing it in there, I just don't understand how the management and the owners allow it to happen. You know, surely it's just, you're just killing your own sport off. And their ratings have proven
Bob, in the United States, we have a Pete the Cat society. You know who Pete the Cat is?
I got a rough idea. But
Pete the Cat is a cartoon. It's a
yeah,
cartoon for kids. It's a
right.
book, cartoon, they have
Yeah.
dolls. Pete the Cat is a kid or a cat that always loses and gets picked on, but they're always like, it's okay, Pete. You didn't win, but we still love you. Pete,
Oh,
you
okay.
get a trophy.
Yeah.
Pete, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay, Pete. Everyone loves you. Well, that's great. We should all love each other. But Pete, you lost. You're not getting a trophy, bro.
Yeah.
Pete should not get a trophy. We live in the society of Pete the Cat. Everyone gets a trophy,
I've never heard of that.
a participation trophy.
That's it.
You could be the worst or laziest or whatever. It's okay, Pete.
Here's your trophy.
We understand you're just not as hardworking as everyone else, Pete. But you know what? We'll pay for you to live in this society. We live in a Pete the Cat society.
No, and
No
that's
one
where,
wants this.
and that's where I tell you, the kids I love to coach, mate. And I don't know whether
That's
you
why
get,
Pete the Cat's killing America.
well, and Australia and England. The kids I love to coach are the kids that come from the Balkans. You know, kids from Serbia, Poland, Croatia, Russia. We get a lot of those kids come over here. They come from families that had nothing, and they're taught to appreciate what you got. They don't get it either. But I've got two of these kids in my team now. Another kid I've got
Well,
has
that's
got
how I was raised.
yeah, and
That kind of family.
exactly. And then they appreciate what you got, and they understand what hard work's about. And nothing is given to you; you've got to earn it. But mate, we've got that. What do you call it? Is that as in pizza, the pizza food, or a piece of? That you're saying pizza cat,
Pete the Cat.
as in PIZZA.
Pete
Oh, Pete, Pete.
the Cat.
Pete the cat. I've never heard of that.
Look it up.
I will have to look it up, mate.
Killing America.
Well, it's
Pete
killing
the Cat is killing America.
and Australia, mate. We've got plenty of those over here. I don't know what. Oh, have I lost you? You still there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a lot of those over here too, mate. They do your head in. They just do your head in. And even I tell you, the thing is once you start giving all these kids a trophy, it doesn't end there, because then they want more. Or then they think their kid's the next superstar. Or why haven't you picked him in this certain team? Or mate, that's a whole another conversation. I want to go back to quickly that what you're talking about, that minority that's probably out there. And I did talk about this on the phone. Now, you definitely don't fit this profile. You're out and up front with your support for Trump, for example, which I think is great. But there is people like in Australia who are Trump supporters, but they're not game to say publicly they're Trump supporters. Now, I have been doing a lot of reading and watching these polls. No one believes polls anymore. You know, I certainly don't believe the polls, because they got it wrong with Brexit. They got it wrong with Trump last time. They got it wrong over here for the Australian election. And I think it's a common thing where people don't want to say, forget Trump. They just don't even want to say they're conservative thinking, because you get this cancel culture coming on you so big if you expose it. So a lot of the talk's been about this shy Trump vote, you know, that won't show up in the polls, or even, which is, if it's happening, I find extremely funny that when the pollsters ring them, they might be a Trump supporter, but they say they're voting for Biden to skew out these polls.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of those. Yeah.
There
They're
is?
afraid. They're afraid. Here, let's just get this out there, too. It's not that a lot of people like Trump as a person,
Yep.
but they like the idea of what he stands for.
Which is?
And a lot of Americans are tired of the good old boy politician system that's been hurting them for years.
Yeah.
So it's not that Trump's a good person. He might be. I don't know. I don't really think he's a racist. However, for what he's trying to do is why he's getting the support that he's getting.
Yeah.
He's not a traditional politician, and that's what America wants. They want somebody that's not going to lie to them and is going to stick up for them, and that's why people are supporting Trump.
Well, that's the beauty of your system. That's one of the, you know, and every political system has its strengths and weaknesses, but you can get a guy from the outside. See, in Australia, we can't vote. We don't vote for leader. We vote for party. The party decides the leader. So over there, you get a direct vote into it. For us to get a Trump in Australian politics is not impossible, because he would have to go through the party system and survive all the politicking and the backstabbing, much like you've got in your House of Representatives. there is a bit of a debate, though. It was long ago. It's, there's, I think there's talk about the Queen advocating or stepping aside for Prince Charles, and he's going to become King Charles. I think what you'll find, if that happens very soon, you find the Republican movement in Australia gaining traction. But the old model they had, cop this, you like this, is we're going to pretty much keep our current system when we vote for our politicians, but then the politicians, like they do for the Pope, they're going to get into all one room and they're going to decide who's going to be the president. And I'm going, you're never going to get up that model, because the people are going to want to vote for their president. They're not going to, they do not trust you politicians. So if we could have a style like you did, where there was a presidential election and we could vote for our president, then a Trump here would get up. No doubt in my mind, someone like Trump would get up over here, because it's very similar. They're just sick of Team Blue and Team Red. They just want someone who speaks for them and not for the system. And I think you're spot on there. That I'll tell you something else that was funny on the documentary. You sort of made me think a little bit. I forgot about it. How's this for a criticism of Trump? Now, maybe I'm an old male and I don't get it, because I don't see how this is a criticism. But apparently, because he's a ladies' man, he's an arsehole. What's wrong with being a ladies' man?
The governor of New York isn't married; he's divorced, and he's a ladies' man. What's the problem?
I don't get that line of criticism. In fact, I think most red-blooded men would be jealous that Trump can actually get these beautiful women on his shoulder. So they use that as a point of attack, though, both in America and here. It's funny how he gets these people motivated to find ways to attack him. Whether it's because he's out of the left system or not, it's got me baffled. But mate, we've been going for a while. You got any final thoughts on this whole election? I tell you one thing. Sorry, before I go there, what was the vibe in the at the polls? Was there a vibe there amongst the people waiting to vote or in the booths?
Yeah, that's funny you said that, because I think everyone was afraid to say who they're voting for.
And the only reason they'd be afraid to say it is because they're probably voting Trump. Would that be fair?
I don't think that. I think a lot of people are afraid to say anything, because there'll be an immediate argument between the two. So they're keeping their political
views to themselves. Yeah. Well, that's probably a healthy thing. I know. So you really can't then grab a vibe from what's going on.
Yeah, and I didn't say who I was voting for. I wouldn't have cared either way, because I don't. I'm no one there would probably mess with me or anything, but there's probably some people that were probably afraid to say who they're going to vote for. So it's not a big deal, but I would say that in the area where I live, it would be 50-50 probably.
Okay.
From that, I would probably say 70-30. 70 Trump, 30 Biden.
So one of the guys over here, one of our media guys, the one who was supportive of Trump, he has a theory. And I don't know whether this is valid or not. On all the pre-polling, that would go 2-1 to Biden. He said, but the Republican voters tend to prefer to come out on the day. So he said that would probably be 2-1 Republican. So unless Biden had a very big lead in the pre-polling, the so-called red wave would come in on election day and just wipe him out. So based on what he's seeing, he's predicting a Trump landslide, because the pre-polling is not showing a big enough margin towards Biden. Would that be a fair summary?
Yeah, I could see this. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be closer than people think in some of the states further north.
Right, like Michigan and.
Yeah, so all the southern states, I think, are going to be, a lot of those are going to be Trump. And then you're going to get some of those traditional Ohio, Pennsylvania, that are typically Republican. You're going to get those. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really, New Hampshire probably, yeah, it'll probably be interesting.
Isn't that a fascinating, this is where I like politics a little bit, and how the demographics change a bit. That's actually quite fascinating to hear that, because you're basically saying your borders of the old Civil War. All the southern states that were Democrat are now Republican, and all the states that were the Union Republicans under Abe Lincoln, a lot of them are now Democrat.
Yeah, it's
The world's
crazy.
gone.
See, that's exactly what we're going back to. The reason Trump won is a lot of people were tired about the Democratic Party.
Yeah,
So now they've got a guy that's, so what, he's Republican. He's doing for them what they've wanted for all these years.
yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see at the end of the day. I'm really anxious to see what's when the polls start coming in at 7, 8 o'clock. It's going to be fun to watch tonight. I'll give you a ring.
Yeah.
If you want, because you're going to probably go to sleep here now, and that's 8 hours away, 9 hours away. I'll give you a ring, and maybe we can do another one of these, and I'll give you a live update on what I'm seeing.
Why not? Well, we'll do that. Then I can edit it back. The other thing I wouldn't mind doing with you, mate, is in a week or two's time, we do this again. We'll definitely know who the winner is, and there'll be a bit of we'll definitely know by then what's going on in the streets a little bit. So it'd be nice to get that feedback from the street, So if we can do that, it'd be fascinating. So, mate, before we go, I just want to thank you for your time. I know it's early. I was going to say it's early in the morning over there. It's a lot earlier over here.
What do you got? 3 in the morning now? 3:30?
Oh, we're going on 4 o'clock. So, mate, I might just have an all-nighter and sit up and just take all this in. I think I'll get the coffees all teed up. I've got a bit of work to do. So I might sit with a bit of Trump in the background. Look, mate, I just, there's the narcissist side of me that just, I don't think, no, narcissist is not the word. There's the side where I like to, what's the word where the people who like to inflict pain on others? Can't remember what that is. But
narcissist?
Is it? Is that what it is? Oh, there you go. That's the side of me because, mate, I hope it's a Trump landslide because I just want to see everybody who's been anti-Trump and predicting against Trump and all that. The beautiful thing about 2016 was seeing all of them just crying in their tears. If they can't get Trump out this time, well, he's got another 4 years. He's taken about as much as he could take from these guys. Surely they can't have that much more going. And I think Trump is ready just to blow the lid off a lot of these, the Hunter Biden laptop and these conspiracies throw him out. Tell me, this is a bit bizarre to me. There's been all this evidence through the FBI and all that stuff about what seems to be illegal behaviour with some really high-profile people. There's been a bit of criticism coming out for your Attorney General, Barr, over there. Is that valid? Is he? Why hasn't there been any charges? Or is he just slowly getting this job done, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. There's been so much focus on what's going on with Trump and COVID and everything that
that's all in the background.
I think that things have to sort themselves out, and you'll get to that eventually. So I think right now the focus is on COVID and the election and what's happening. There's only one main issue here: getting Trump out of office.
Yeah, and it's not.
They'll concentrate on the other things later.
So if Trump gets a really good win here, and let's hope he does, and he can call it tonight, then the table's pretty clear. He can go gung ho on a few of these. Because I'll give you a bigger prediction. If Trump wins tonight, or even if Trump loses, I bet you COVID starts to disappear.
That's what we're thinking too. Yeah. They've done everything they can to get him out, and it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
But what's funny though is will it disappear in America or everywhere else also?
Listen, there's similar debates.
Or do we have a vaccine that's just waiting to come out so everyone gets it?
Mate, you could follow the theories on COVID down so many rabbit warrens here. It's I've listened. There's a special declaration that 4 of the world's leading experts in infectious diseases have signed off. Now, these are the best brains on the planet, and they're totally against, for example, lockdowns. Totally opposed to it. It's called the Great Barrington Declaration. You've got to dig for it a bit on YouTube. If you sit down, I sat down because I'm writing a story on it. It took me 5 hours to write down their answers, whatever, because I'm still a bit of a two-fingered typist. But it was one of the best things I've done because I learned a whole lot about viruses, how to deal with them, all that. So for me, COVID's a thing. But the way that the politicians worldwide have reacted to it, one of these experts said, we're going to look back in 5 years and realize this is the worst public health policy disaster the world's ever seen, because they've gone away from the traditional way of dealing with viruses and they've moved to this lockdown thing. Now, I know in America, some states locked down, some states didn't. Funnily enough, the states that locked down still had probably as bad, if not worse, instances of COVID and death and all that in their states. So they're proving over there that it didn't lock down. What's your last question for you? The Florida governor, what do you think of him?
Good or bad? I mean, I don't think that there's anything really negative about him.
Just everything I've watched with him, I've really, compared to our politicians, I think he's brilliant. And that's, I've got to say it's limited, but I don't know whether you look at other states so much. I mean, straight away when they come out of their restrictions, he got asked, are we ever going into lockdowns? He goes, we'll never go to lockdowns again. He said, businesses are open, societies are open, we're open for business. We're never going back there. Even if the cases go up, we're going to have to learn to live with this thing. Pretty much the Trump line a little bit. But the reason I find him interesting is Florida, they have 21 million people in a state the size of Victoria. In Australia, we've got 24 million in a country the size of America, and yet we've locked down everything. It's just insane over here. We don't have the population or the economy you guys have got. We can't afford to lock down for our population, for our small size. So anyway, we'll see where it goes. Mate, listen, time to finish this off. Definitely, let's get back together. What'll that be over there? You're saying 8, 9 o'clock your time, yeah?
Yeah. So it's a quarter to 12 here. So
that's in 9 hours.
Yeah, I'm going to have some lunch here shortly. I got to return some calls to Europe before they go to bed, and then I'm going to head up north.
Okay, so you're going back to Chicago after this, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I go by Chicago time. So, all right, when I get up out of bed, mate, if I do, probably a chance I will go out of bed at my age, I'll give you a call back and we'll see if we can't tee up again. And then we can put the two together.
We'll
hopefully get some results.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait. Yeah, so I'd be happy to talk to you.
All right, done. I'll give you another call later on, mate. Thanks for your time. You're a legend. It's I love the straight talk. I'll edit out your 4-letter F word there. You let it drop. I was very impressed, mate. You only dropped one bad word.
1 or 2, not bad.
No, the rest of it was pretty good. Yeah, no, it was
good. Not bad. Yeah, it's good. It's good. This is fun stuff.
Yeah. All right, we'll do it again, mate. In about 9 hours.
Good one. All right. Have a good sleep.
I shall do, mate. See you, buddy.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.